chief stands there to bless mankind. 'Tis the focus of Illumination's flame, gift of God to soul and mind, blazing there in the golden and sacred heart, ever waiting for man to seek its balm, and the love of the ones who now guard its holy light, holding balance in this cosmic arm. At thy side, thy complement divine, lovely goddess of this sacred flame, ever stands and through her purifying power, raises all in the I am made. Now our love ever flows from every earnest heart, to enfold all who serve to set life free, knowing well of thy service that forms a mighty part of the building of the world to be. Blessed flame, Illumination's balm, to the minds of all who seek thy light, ever send thy love from Titicaca's shore, that each one may feel thy might, penetrating the hearts of those who stand for truth, in a world ever changing day by day, ever endeavoring to be steadfast beacons to our youth, symbols of the life, the truth, the way.
Peace and greetings out of the light of holy illumination and its flame. Peace and greetings in God's name to every keeper of the flame. I, Meru, come to you today to pour out from the great sun disk radiance of infinite illumination the feeling of God for his children that directs them in wisdom's steps. We come today then to create in the mind a new passion for infinite wisdom. There is something about satisfaction that creates a state of hypnosis in individuals' consciousness, whereby they no longer pursue knowledge, for they feel that they have achieved it. We would shatter that concept this day, for never before has so much knowledge and such a variety of knowledge been the requirement of the age. We call then to your own God presence and Holy Christ's self for a release of the infinite flame of illumination from the very heart of God to each and every one of you, that will enable you to feel no fear, no pain, no agony, no sense of frustration, no over-concern for the world's ills that cannot be balanced in service, and no momentum of discord which you have generated in the past, but a freedom to accept from the heart of God the power of illumination to break the bonds that have kept you bound because of mortal ignorance. In true illumination, there is a manifestation of infinite love and holy will, which when permitted ingress into the consciousness, acts as an infinite catalyst of light to release from the God flame within yourselves those passions for the knowledge of freedom that will enable you to take your place today in the golden age and assist mankind in this hour of peril and darkness in the outer world, where there truly is weeping and gnashing of teeth. We say then, let complacency yield to concern, but let that concern be mounted upon the jewel crest of discrimination, and let the souls of men that love freedom understand that freedom to know is freedom to accept and progressively enter in to a higher understanding of the law of your being. It is never enough for an individual to have read a book through from cover to cover, but if it be worthy of your attention in the first place, a re-examination of its principles and tenets should enable you to extract therefrom every ounce of the precious essence of life-giving, internal, all-wise, all-knowing intelligence from the mind and heart of God. Somehow or other, there is a state of Dead Sea consciousness in those individuals who do not realize that they have a permanent connection with their own I Am presence in the heart of the great central sun, that connection has the power to continually establish contact with the source of all wisdom in the heart of the great central sun. Will you understand with me then that you need never feel the sense of the Dead Sea, that you are simply a sack into which is continually crammed more and more knowledge, but you are an open sea that is attuning at all times with the flow of universal wisdom from God's heart, releasing that wisdom into the stream of action as mighty accomplishment for yourselves and for all mankind. When individuals feel that sense of frustration that comes about because they feel that there is no more that they can know, it is because they have eclipsed the God flame of illumination, and they have intruded their own finite dark body of finite substance between the sun of universal illumination and their own individuality, with its receptive consciousness waiting and outpouring from the heart of God of just that specific bit of knowledge which will enable them to understand how to proceed in the orderly business of fashioning their lives according to the divine ideal. Now, as I observe the flame of universal compassion mingles momentarily with the flame of illumination here at Lake Titicaca, and we observe how that a dissemination is made by the holy angels of illumination of the substance of that flame, and it is directed now into the royal Tetons, into the chamber and record room of the Grand Tetons, thence to pass forth into the atmosphere from the realm of Wyoming, where the Grand Teton ranges are, to the focus of the God Tabor in Colorado Springs, which has been newly established, and the eye of that center is to be activated, and a tremendous outpouring of holy illumination's flame is to direct its rays forth into this sanctuary and property for the purpose of enhancing the spiritual experiences of life, which will enable this focus and the adherents of it, the keepers of the flame, and those who have accepted the challenge of this age from Saint Germain, to proceed forth by cosmic discretion in an orderly direction of establishing in the world of form greater receptivity by the broadcast of your minds through that inner mystic talismanic magic of the heart that is in love with the miracle sense of cosmic providence. Heed then my words, for behold, I show you a great mystery. The talisman that everyone has is the talisman of the flame within the heart. But the purpose of that talisman is to enable men to magnetize and draw forth those other hidden foci within the earth at various locations on the planetary body, in the Grand Teton Ranges, in Wyoming, in other places throughout the land, even including that magnificent Cleopatra's Needle, which is in Central Park, in New York City, and other places throughout the world which are known to those of you who have received instruction on it. I shall not list it at this moment. Therefore, I call to your outer attention that there are places on the earth which you can visit either physically or through the power of the Spirit and make contact with the God foci of talismanic magic which has been placed there by the ascended masters, and enable you to add to the size and intensity of the God flame of illumination within yourself. This, of course, may explain to some of you why Pythagoras and others saw to it that their students did travel at various times throughout the world. You will understand then why Marco Polo traveled also in pursuit of holy wisdom, which is not always generated within the hearts of people, but is sometimes imprisoned within the secrets of the earth itself. This is a cosmic archaeology, and it is based upon the concept of the Lord Christ, which he uttered in secret and yet was printed openly, saying, "And if these should hold their peace, the very stones would cry out." Let men understand then that within the substance of rock and within the substance of mountainous areas and trees, growing things, minerals, and many of the various artifacts of civilization are to be found radiating centers of great God design. You can understand radioactivity. You can understand the power of the atom and the electron. But can you understand that God, who has myriad secrets never yet vouchsafed to ordinary men, has been able through the hands of those angels whom he has sent forth from higher domains, and those sons of heaven and sons of God that walk the earth, to plant talismans throughout the earth that would preserve that message of divine love and light for all ages, that would enable men to be as they never were before, because they had come in contact with those talismans of light which were placed here in a position of intense action to assist mankind in finding their freedom. Yet I tell you, your freedom is not to be found in the outer realm, but in the inner, and the talismanic flame that is within your own heart, and the energy that beats your heart can assist you as a lodestone to direct you to that specific spot where the radiating power of the Christ and the Holy Spirit is locked in a more than ordinary focus, helping you to establish in yourself, in your own consciousness, in the domain of your own holy reason, a similar action of the talisman, so that you will become a moving talisman, a mobile manifestation of light to all with whom you come in contact. It is a great pity that individuals do not understand the manifold mysteries of God, but seem to feel that after they have read a few books, or taken a little instruction from someone or other, or received a tingling in their arm or shoulder blade, or a feeling of love and passion in their heart, or sensed or had some mystical experience, that now they have had attainment. Attainment is a long road, precious ones, and I say this not because I wish to discourage you, but because from the standpoint of time and space, the journey into universal reality requires and demands and deserves the fullness of mankind's attention, that they would not think that it would be a simple formula whereby they could recite some form of incantation or accept some spiritual teaching or become directed by some great master and then immediately rocket up into the fullness of their own identity. The greatest step that any man can take is, of course, the ascension in the light. But until that comes, every step of the way that is necessary for the student body to have must be pursued until man has exhausted every possibility within his own domain of accepting the opportunities of God. And then certainly, as the Lord liveth, I say unto you, the opportunities of life will open anew, and fresh vistas will appear before the tired mind, renewing it now with the power and radiance of the Christ. And this is the beauty of the divine plan, that there is never any ultimate anywhere in the universe, but a transcendent manifestation of God idealism, whereby when men understand a portion of the divine and have attained a certain manifestation of summit activity within a certain idea, they find themselves at a pinnacle, only to see that it now becomes a plateau. And from that plateau, which they now see as attainment, long recognized and indulged in, which they have accepted as quite natural, they are asked to begin again a new climb to higher vistas. We trust that you will not find this discouraging and disheartening, as we say to you that throughout the world the brothers of the shadow are constantly weaving new forms of doctrine and expressions intended to satisfy mankind's spiritual hunger. These promise men liberty, and those who promise them liberty are themselves the servants of corruption. For the light of God is transcendent. It is a light greater than that which is found on land and sea. It is the radiance of universal reality. It is the power of universal link between the Christ and man. It is the power of reality and the unfolding divine plan. It is purity and a driven judgment that penetrates the hard shard of mortal substance and egoism and drives each man to become truly a disciple of illumination's flame. And while we are on the subject, I wish to call to your attention today a very important matter. That you will understand it more thoroughly is my prayer, as together with the goddess Meru I seek to pour into your heart chalice a greater understanding of the measurement of the search. Dear ones of the light, the search requires the full intensity of your heart flame and your mind. You have looked upon a welding torch. You have noted how that as the elements of that torch that feed the flame are blended together, there is the formation of a yellow flame and a blue flame. And then you note how, as the skillful welder adjusts the setting, the oxygen is finally drawn down to a sharp point, and that blue flame becomes an intense cutting torch that enables individuals to cut themselves free. Now I am speaking symbolically. You must recognize that as in the outer, so in the inner. And when the powers of the mind and heart are focused together, men will find that they can perform wondrous acts and deeds for their own freedom and the emancipation of all mankind. What think you existed in days of old, in the early founding fathers of this great nation, beloved keepers of the flame? Was it a sullen activity of egoism that pouted every time they were not recognized? Or was it an activity of utter devotion that lived to serve the cause and grace of Almighty God, and understood that God took note of all the good that men were wont to do, as well as the good that they did? Therefore the thought that precedes the action is also blessed, but it is more blessed, blessed ones, to act than it is to merely want to act. And therefore I address you today in the full consciousness and awareness of this fact, hoping, trusting, and praying that you will understand the meaning of life just a bit more after this conference, that you will feel a little more integrated into the peace of the Christ and wisdom's flame, that you will understand that that flame of life within your hearts is the power of the infinite Guru, that the infinite Guru or spiritual teacher exercises and uses many life streams to act and serve the chelas of the great white brotherhood. In days gone by, in ancient Brahmin times, in days gone by in India, in Cambodia, and in many parts of the world, including our own dearly beloved South America, there existed the disciple and teacher relationship, whereas an individual had but one teacher and paid all allegiance to that one. Now the one teacher is your own mighty I Am presence, and every ascended master themselves act to serve the cause of the universal presence. This is a corollary to the sunflower, to the sun. For each petal, each one, turns to serve the God that rises in the east and sets in the west. Each petal then, being corollary to the center, understands that it functions to serve a central cause. When individuals feel that they themselves are the fullness of the law, they are quite right in the domain of themselves, for they have been given dominion and power over themselves. But if they are ever to expand out from the personal self into the tides of reality that become the ocean of infinite love. They must break the bonds and shatter the illusions of the ego. They must see and perceive that service is given to mankind along with wisdom, that wisdom is a boon to service, for it enables men to serve wisely and well. However, the penchant for service must be developed in mankind, and the awareness of the needs and hungers of men. They thirst, they hunger for spiritual food. They are misdirected by many wolves in sheep's clothing, and they are directed many times against themselves. For those who do it solely for the sake of ego, solely for the sake of being thought great by men. Yet the great white brotherhood today, as in all past times, has created no illusion in the consciousness of men, no confusion whatsoever, but we have ever sought to bring forth the power of clarification, to let men see clearly that there is a unity in this manifestation. Some of you have commented upon Gulliver's Travels. Let me say to you today that the many strands in the hands of the Gulliver are the manifestation of Christ's unity. When individuals see that the ropes that are extended down through your own mighty iron presence, the silver cord that ties you to reality, is a union with the central sun, is a union with Helios and Vesta in the sun of this system, is a union with every ascended master's heart, and truly with the hearts of one another. You will see that you never serve an individual or wash their feet, that you do not wash the feet of the Christ, that you never serve an individual or render some cosmic service for mankind that is not rendered unto God. Let then your hearts no longer be troubled about your identity or your progress or where you are. Just know that if you give yourselves without reserve to the light, understanding the need to preserve your priceless bodies, for although to some they are now old relics, I tell you that to the ascended masters they are eternally youthful, for we see the atomic structure therein. And we urge upon you a sense of rejuvenation regardless of your outer age, that you will understand that the power to rejuvenate it is for a cosmic purpose. For when your outer body is rejuvenated by the light and by proper diet, rest, and understanding, you produce the consummate manifestation where the soul can shine forth in all of its splendor within the force field of your identity, and you can serve God and man in a more illustrious way. There is no need for you to feel tired or aged or decrepit in any way, for the flames are the renewing factors of life. And if your minds are sometimes tired and that which is known as brain fag comes into your being, understand that the dark forces have talismanic magic throughout the earth, that they create side by side wherever there is a focus of light, within all the way from 1,000 yards to 100 miles, a focus of darkness and shadow to refute the very manifestation of the light. And this is because they know that their time is short when it is placed alongside the ideal of the infinite. They realize that the darkness has only a short time to live before the light will burst forth, and the sun of illumination will bring to everyone the purity and realization of the golden age law. For out of the sun and the flame from the sun, out of golden illumination's radiance, came forth golden rule law. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And what a beautiful concept it is when carried out into outer expression. Yet I say to you today that the lingering talismanic magic of the dark ones has now reached into the force field of world politics and created such a misqualification of energy that the youth of the world are being destructed and carried downhill with a tremendous momentum which could well manifest according to the directions given to you this past evening by your beloved Paul the Venetian. We of the councils of illumination plead then for a renewal of the interest of men in one another. You may say you are only one, but so is everyone else upon earth. They are only one. Yet Adolf Hitler was only one and was able to produce so much misery because of his black magical connections and his contact with the activity of black magic and talismanic black magic in Schwarzwald and also at Berchtesgaden. For strange as it may seem, while there is a great retreat of light in Germany, it was necessary, so the brothers of the shadow thought, to create a counter-retreat which used the symbol of the swastika, once a symbol of beauty and perfection at our levels, to create a reign of terror upon the planet and a bloodbath of destruction for mankind. We plead now then with you once again to understand that nothing you can do for the light is too much, for you have been given the torch from Almighty God. You have been given the illumination flame. You in the outer today can carry the torch into activity for mankind. It is not enough to simply want to do it. The law requires, as keepers of the flame, that you shall shew it forth to your heavenly Father. What if you give your life for this cause? Would it mean a great deal, precious ones? I tell you, men are dying for far less important causes. And I tell you that the time has come when people must stand up and be counted for the law's sake, that the law may produce the perfection for which mankind hungers. In the name of heaven I say, O angels of illumination flame, take now the substance from Lake Titicaca and bear it temporarily to Colorado Springs and bear it to the United States and scatter it abroad in the hearts of men who would receive it, that they may perceive the way to discover the talismans of God that are within themselves, in their flesh form, in the substance of their bones, in their brains, in the medulla oblongata, in the heart flame, even in their feet. And let them see how they can create that mineral miracle of light's perfection that extracts out of the substance of the earth and the rocks themselves the power of the infinite light, that the God flame may bring man out of the caves of materiality into the realm of the dropping flames of light from on high, that will produce the miracle manifestations, giving men new bodies, new minds, and a new heaven and a new earth. For the former things shall be passed away, and behold, God shall make all things new. In the name of the goddess Meru, I thank you for your attention.
I love you truly, truly, dear. Life with its sorrow, life with its tear, fades into dreams when I feel you are near. For I love you truly, truly, dear. A love 'tis something to feel your kind hand.
Ah, yes, 'tis something by your side to stand.
Gone is the sorrow,
Gone doubt and fear, for you love me truly.
truly, dear.
Most gracious ladies and gentlemen, as I come to you tonight, it is with the express desire to speak on the gathering reality. For men, as St. Paul said long ago, know in part and understand in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away with. Perhaps some have misunderstood the high sense of reality in that statement. For it is not a doing away of the parts, but it is a uniting of the parts into the shape of reality, which in the consciousness of individual men brings them to a fervent awareness of themselves. And so as we seek to gather for ourselves the meaning of reality, we seek also in the consciousness and domain of each individual to convey those assisting suggestions that will help you to gather for yourselves the wondrous realities of God, which will delight the heart and shed the sense of beauty into the domain of the personal self, that seems then to open as a flower to drink in the light of the sun celeste. It is our desire to foster in you all a sense of reality which belongs to you. I remember so dearly the day when I first developed enough of the divine sense to feel that God and I were one. It had been a cloudy morning, and I had worked long and hard to try to portray the face of an angel. Somehow or other it was as though the celestial beauty escaped me, and there was a jangle in my nerves and sense and feelings. This was strange because I had for some time developed a feeling of serenity, of calmness, of knowing. And now here I was desiring out of that calmness and serenity and knowing to portray a celestial being, and I needed to drink deeply of the fountain of peace. For some reason which did not seem to break through to my outer senses, I could not still my mind. And so, shall I say, with some measure of disturbance, I closed up shop. I put away my brushes, and frankly there was sadness in my every movement. It was not a state of utter discouragement. It was just an unrest in my feeling world, an unusual state of unrest, almost dire forebodings that something undesirable would happen. I left the studio, and I walked out into the street. And it seemed to me as though every thought of my heart was known by all whom I met. And certainly my glances must have appeared furtive, as though I were a criminal seeking to hide from the eyes of prying mankind. This drove me almost to a state of desperation now, and I wandered away from the busy thoroughfare of the streets of the city, seeking the reasonable quietude of the country. As I reached the edge of a field, near an old churchyard, it seemed as though the feeling began to lessen of oppression. And the clouds were now thinning a bit, and a gentle breeze was blowing. And in the stillness of the approaching country, I began to feel the awakening of the old sense of peace so familiar and so dearly loved. And as I wandered farther and farther into the fields and forest regions, I began to ponder as to whether or not the oppressions of the city could be responsible for my condition. And then I reasoned quite suddenly that I ought to be strong enough to hold a sense of beauty in the midst of the ugliness and garrets of the city. And I decided that this was not it either. Yet I enjoyed my now newfound serenity, and I felt that perhaps if I could quiet the possibility of its return, I would be able to go back once more to the room and create the angelic face. But this was not to happen, for I heard a terrible sound of sobbing, and my heart for a moment trembled for mankind. This sobbing came from a grave side, where a young lady, prone now upon the ground, cried as though her heart would break. I debated with myself as to whether or not it would be propriety for me to speak, being a stranger unto her, and to say unto her, "Dry your tears, daughter, be of peace." And somehow I could not for a moment seize the courage, and this too was unusual. And then I decided that I would enter into simple prayer for her. And as I prayed, the sun came out with greater glory. And it was as though the hands of the angels were drawing back the curtain of dark clouds. And with this change in the environment of the little cemetery, the young lady suddenly ceased to sob and gazed up with wonder. Her sorrow and her grief were plainly stamped upon one of the most beautiful faces that I have ever seen. And there was my angel, the face that I sought. Poignantly now, I recreate that moment. But I knew that I must paint out that grief, and therefore I must seek somehow to bring a ray of hope, some measure of consolation to her heart. And hesitantly at first, I broke a smile upon my face, and she returned it. And I said to her, as I tenderly took a hold of an apple blossom from a nearby tree, "Daughter, there is a resurrection in nature, and all things do pass and go through their cycles, only to return once again to the fullness and the dawn of bloom. And in the resurrection, your father dear shall return to you." And she sobbingly said, "I know it, kind sir, I know it. But I am so lonely now." And I took her by the hand, and as I prayed, I felt a surge of the Christ radiance go through me, and I watched as every line of her face reflected consolation, mercy, acceptance of the resurrection spirit. And then I noted that through my arm and hands was a great pulsing energy, and I felt my heart beat with greater expectation. Truly, the whole I spirit was activated. And the young woman suddenly burst into a smile of greater happiness, and she said, "Oh, I do not feel lonely anymore. I will go home now to my mother, who has been distraught with my grief, and I will no longer mourn, for I feel something within myself, something that encourages me to believe you. I do not know why. Your words have meaning to me, and I am no longer sad." And now, as the sun came out in greater measure, looming full-orbed, I witnessed the transformation that was a miracle never to be forgotten throughout all the days of my life until I won my ascension. The face of an angel shone now in all of the glory and magnitude of God, and I said, "Truly God is veiled in flesh." And I returned and painted my angel. You are all the children of his heart, and the majesty of his perfection is with you always. There are times when the emotional body of man is disturbed by outer conditions, and in the misfortune of torment, the soul knows unrest. It is very helpful to individuals to understand that this too shall pass, as has been said. If individuals will understand that life is a flow of experience, that experience is controllable within the framework of some limitation, that some experience is, by reason of karma, uncontrollable for the moment, and this must be lived with and accepted. At the present time, I have been in consultation with the Master of Paris. Your beloved El Moria has also been in consultation with me. The recent student unrest that so tore up the beauty of the land of France is most unfortunate, for while there is here a great spirit of liberty, the spirit of liberty is all over the world. And even in countries dominated by communism, where freedom is practically non-existent, there is still a flame of liberty. This liberty is in the hearts of the people. They have now quite sadly lost everything. For them, there is no possibility of true freedom and its expression. They must function within the limitations that a dominant society and a dominated society has imposed upon them. There is, as you know, at the present hour, a coming forth now into outer admission, the statement by the communists of the world that we are behind the student revolt. We have long known of the factors governing world unrest. We have spoken often to mankind about it, and we have desired them to do something to protect their interests. But, as the scriptures record so beautifully and delicately, and they were eating, and they were drinking, and they were marrying, And they were giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it also be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Let the children of the Son understand then that with all the perfection and beauty of God that is everywhere surrounding men, there is still a famine in the land, and spiritual feasts are often ignored. How many hungry hearts tonight would desire to sit at our feet as we bring forth to you our feeling of true symmetrical beauty that stems from man's cognition of the words of the Christ, I am the true vine. You are the husbandman. You are intended to create beautifully and wonderfully, co-creators with God. You chisel line by line your spiritual form from the marvelous cosmic ideas which the Father released in the beginning with the first thought of man's reality. I will fashion man in my own image and after my own likeness. Let us go down now and make man after our image and after our likeness. And so it came to pass that this was done. Yet because of the vastness of cosmos and the myriad manifestations of life forms, the coming into manifestation of spiral nebulae, the birth and death of worlds and systems, there are coincidental manifestations, and time and space are great barriers to mortal men encased in the mold of human clay. But this clay was fired in the kilns of heaven. The breath of the Holy Spirit fashioned even the physical form of man, and the life dimensions over which man are given dominion are the dimensions of their consciousness. And consciousness is the treasure house which must be guarded and loved. Your consciousness creates its own matrices, its own shapes of things to come. Therefore the words, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, cannot be outdone as an expression of universal law. In coming to you tonight and alerting you to the need to preserve the sense of infinite beauty, I am persuaded that the time is short for the mankind of earth unless there be a great awakening. And if it come to pass that men shall fail over the world to understand that they can live not in sadness, not in joy, but only in a mixture of sadness and joy, then it will be a great pity. For man is not intended to have the consciousness of a yo-yo, to be pulled first up and then down. He is intended to preserve the consciousness of the divine image, which can never be unhappy, can never be discontented, can never be disturbed long, but only suffer momentary excursions into the negative realm. The negative realm is like a thorn. The negative realm is like thistles. The negative realm is one from which you would naturally recoil. But some have a morbid fascination for horror and destruction, for death, We are men of spiritual principle, and we desire to see to it that you also, as men and women of the Divine One, will hold to the perfection of the present. Therefore, tonight, I wish to say to you that Master Moria and the Master of Paris have counseled that now that the communists of the world have come out and openly admitted the situation concerning the youth of the world, it should indicate to the perceptive among you that they are confident of their strength. There is now no time for dalliance, no time for indulgence in personal foibles and identification, but a time now to preserve the divine sense as never before. It is not enough to preserve it for yourself alone. There must be an invocation and an evocation of the perceptions of perfection among mankind. Hope is not enough. Faith must be evoked. Faith is not enough. Action and manifestation must be evoked. And therefore, as I gaze upon the calendar of the future, and I see the frame that men have made to put around the picture of life as it will be in a decade, and another decade, and yet another, as an artist with a soul and immortality, I cringe from what I see, and I pray and say, "O God, be merciful." Your Blessed Virgin, Mother Mary, prays with me, for the state of the world is most horrendous, and fear is in many hearts, and a quivering of destruction, and we do not wish to amplify it, but we must alert the students of the light that the time is indeed, in all verity, short. Your beloved messenger who stands before you has little idea himself as to the solemnity with which I am speaking these words. This is as much a surprise to him that I am saying this as it is to some of you. But strange as it may seem, I was chosen tonight and for this conference to sound out the note of warning. And I said, what? I am chosen. And the Lord Mahachohan said to me, by the power of the Holy Spirit, beloved Paul, I say to you that you are chosen. You, the gentle soul of the artist, must make men think. You have the power to mold thought and feeling. Paul, go forth and do it. Now you know, blessed ones, when the Mahachohan speaks, one does not refuse. Have you ever gazed upon the eyes of the Lord Mahachohan? Even in heaven, in our ascended state, I once said to him, I would like once again to take in my hand an earthly brush and palette and paint the beauty on your face. And do you know, precious ones, that the Lord Mahachohan never answered me? He gave me a look that almost froze me in my tracks, and I never mentioned it again. I hope that you will understand that even at our level, there is a preserved remnant of the personality. We are not a bunch of china dolls, painted faces, radiant light forms that have no preservation of our identities whatsoever. We are yet embryonic gods in the becoming. For the transcendent outreach of the divine is a magnificent hierarchical plan, bringing men at different seasons and different times of their life to fulfillment. And oh, how sweet it is. How sweet it is, and what a thing of worth it is, when an individual has long labored and striven for a certain development within their soul, to see at last that they have bridged the gap of temptation. The temptation cannot move them to perform that which they do not really want to do, but which they do anyway. What a wonderful thing it is when an individual can learn to steel himself from the judgments of men, when he is not affected by mortal opinions and mortal ideas, when he is able to decide his own course as the ancient mariner and the ancient of days, when he is able to realize that to him is given the power of faith and vision and execution of vision, and he realizes that his soul is like unto God. His job to make it so. Therefore, precious ones of the light, throughout this class, I urge you to understand that the firecrackers of our words and ideas, the vital essences we release, are themselves effective for the moment of their release to a certain degree according to your perceptions and acceptance. But the real role of our dictations in your affairs is to hold a permanent focus within your hearts for the light. It is an old image, but one highly loved by St. Francis of Assisi, your beloved Kuthumi, the image of the creech. And I have often thought that this creech, woven of beautiful wood, is intended to hold the Christ form. And I have regretted that so many have adorned the creech with a crown of thorns. From the very beginning, they have somehow sensed the misery that shall be theirs. And this draws to them misery. I urge, therefore, that this be abandoned, that the heart be considered as the creature of the Christ, that the miniature place where the Lord lay be prepared for him, not as a place of the skull or a time of suffering to come, but as a time of joy and beauty and wholesomeness and relaxation and understanding, and a flow of the golden shuttle of the Most High God's thought. The cosmic looms weave, and there is a majesty in the rapidity of the ingoing and outgoing of the shuttle. And the thread unwinds, and the span of life is lengthened and strengthened, and courage and fiber and majesty and dominion and beauty and eternal love are woven into the immortal picture. You were created in the foreverness of God, for the foreverness of God, and by the foreverness of God. If this be so, then all that you create must endure for I. And if it endure for I and you create evilly, then this would endure also for I. But nay, it is not so. For that which does not hold the divine majesty is a leaky sieve, and fortunately the waters of life slip then through the sieve and descend to the eternal stream once again to be used as formative essence. Let all understand then the passion of God, that creating man in his own image said, if the children of men whom I have endowed with my own image will not build me a house suitable for that image to dwell in, then I will give them time and space and opportunity. And behold, darkness will come upon them, and they shall experience a mingling of darkness and light until the day when the last enemy shall be overcome, and I shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and the eternal beauty of my realm shall be their enduring mind state. For the mind state of men is their consciousness, and as a man thinks, he becomes. Will you then regard your days as days of service and nights of love and rest? Will you then understand that the peace of the presence wants to keep you blessed? Will you understand that the art of loving God is to be learned in the art of loving man? Will you understand that there are some things that manifest and are in the world of form that you cannot love, that you must not hate, but must shun? Will you learn the art of dividing the word rightly and truly? For the word is God. I thank you. mankind of earth. I am Michael, prince of the archangels, And the love that I bear is a salute today to the Elohim who represent the magnificent divisions and subdivisions of the infinite flame of Alpha and Omega. I come then today to this earth, surfeited as it is in the dust of centuries of archaic learning, which have not produced the spiritual power to give freedom to mankind, in the hope that the radiance which I bring to the earth, together with those universal angels of the cosmic heart, will bring forth in the feeling world of mankind a realization that the power of the sacred fire is the creative power which produced all manifestation and brought it into form. Gracious ones, the outer manifestation is but a page of the manifest volumes of the radiance of the creative splendor, that which has never yet been brought forth into manifest form. In all of the time that has elapsed from that moment when the first photon of light effused itself into the universe until this present day, that which has been is less than a page in the celestial book of the purposes of God, hidden yet from the view of the angelic host, certainly therefore not revealed to mankind, who in their own outer thought do feel that because of the wonder of their discoveries, they now have captured the majority of all scientific knowledge. What a pity then that mankind will so limit themselves and thus not provide avenues of radiance into which they can pour the flight of the soul. Do you understand, precious ones, that movement is going on all the time? That individuals are moving forward into the light, and that the light is enfolding them. First of all, men must have hope, and then when the splendor of hope has fully dawned in consciousness and come to its zenith, men are able to realize that the hope which they have is a reality. For the things which men hope for, the substance of things that are not yet seen, is the faith which I desire today to charge into your feeling world. The faith by which God not only lifted up the mountains, but by which he lifts up the soul and its consciousness, which is of more value than all the mountains of the earth. Do you understand then, blessed ones, that each individual is precious to the heart of God? You are not just a grain of sand, but turning worlds in the space of God, upon whom the Son of Righteousness is risen with healing in his wings. It is the desire of Almighty God then to have you feel this day the buoyancy of his heart, the buoyancy of his being, and to escape from a sense of confinement which your blessed little egg frame has now kept you in for quite a while as you see time. But the angelic host, we who understand the meaning of the feeling of divine love as you, blessed ones, have never yet been able to do, realize full well that the love that God bears for his creation is able to cause them to break through into that magnificent cosmic perfection which is the immortal power of faith, the faith to do as it is the faith to conceive to do. We come then to change the flow of the energy patterns in your world, to assure you that men can be more than men if they will only first of all conceive that, and holding that faith, realize that they do not need to display it before their mortal men, caught up in the vanities and delusions of the world, who would but bring them to scoffing and mockery. In the sacred feeling of your heart, you can reach out into the patterns of nature and produce miracles in consciousness which will enable you to take your place with those pioneers of the Spirit who have in past ages ascended into the heart of God. I reference now one who comes here today and stands beside me upon this platform, the ascended Master Enoch, the seventh from Adam, who was able long ago in the earlier days of the world to hold that realization within his heart that the things of God were wiser than the things of the world, and that the material substance was but a reflection of the spiritual power of the universe and the radiance that veils the flesh. Won't you please be seated? Out of the depths of your hearts you have called unto God, and he has heard your voice this day, and he has determined, because of the peril in the world and the situations that now plague mankind, that as an act of infinite mercy, he will today send more than 10,000 angels to every continent upon this world, and see to it that each band of angels carries a censer from the altars of the sacred fire upon the planet Sirius, which contents will be strewn over the nations in order to produce a greater hunger in the hearts of men for faith to peer beyond the veil and into the realm where the light itself pulsates and beats the majesty of the divine intent. The majesty of the divine intent, gracious ones, is the power of men to conceive the reality of God. What a strange statement, you say. Not at all. For from the beginning, the tambourines of the Spirit to make the music of the soul were implanted in every cell, and the cells themselves were worlds within themselves, which held a content so magnificent that it was like a little universe locked up tight, holding the treasures of the infinite. And the intelligence of the cell and the perfection of that intelligence was wondrous to behold from our levels. Somehow or other, in the course of man's long struggles for realization, he has somehow conceived that the larger a form in relation to himself, the more magnificent it is. Yet, I think that the scientists of the world would find it easy to accept this statement which I make, that in little things there is a luster and magnificence that shows that the universe in its more grandiose schema is manifest in the tiny parts thereof. And because of this subdivision of God's love, a breaking of the sacred Eucharist, whereby not one part of space, but every part of space is hallowed by the sacred fire, men are able then to conceive not of iniquity, but of universal equity, of universal balance, of a purity and love that shows an innate intelligence is within space. But men have polluted it. And therefore I speak today of the crystalline helmet which the angelic host wear. We, when we descend into the time dimensions, wear a crystalline helmet of light substance that is harder than the diamond. We do this because we wish no penetration to ensue, which would bring into our world the power of darkness and shadow or misqualified substance. Yet you have heard the statement made, fools rush in where angels fear to tread, and therefore mankind today often go without their tube of light, without any form of protection whatsoever, into some of the dens of the world. If you will permit me to use your own form of address, and there in those places of iniquity, where the dark spirits assemble to vampirize mankind, individuals pick up in their feeling world those negatives which then linger long afterward as the seeds of dis-ease and produce those unhallowed states of consciousness and unhappiness which sometimes produce a terrible manifestation of the suicide entity. Will you come with me then into a higher state? For a moment, could you conceive of yourselves as spiritual beings? Can you forget the veil of flesh through which you live, in which the divine radiance is hidden? Can you forget it for a moment? Will you do it? It is first necessary that I have your consent. And if you give me your consent, then I say in the name of Almighty God, let the power of infinite faith break the bonds of the flesh. Let men understand the meaning of the loosening of the silver cord and the breaking of the golden bowl, not as a permanent activity, but as an activity of God realization. And will you rise now 6 feet above your heads in your finer vehicles, and cognize that if you can do that, you can go 60 and 600 and farther yet, penetrating the atmosphere. It is our understanding that a statement was made by one of your theologians held somewhat in repute and disrepute, an individual known as Bishop Pike, to the effect that the ascension was an ascension into nowhere. We want to call to your attention that the ascension is the ascension into everywhere. It is the ascension into universal reality behind the time-spatial continuum. It is a realization of God as man was intended to realize him. A situation where the drop drinks the ocean and where the ocean absorbs the drop, with no sacrifice whatsoever of identity or realization. Won't you please be seated? I wish you to now forget your physical bodies. I want you to forget your hands and feet, your eyes, the energies of your heart, your consciousness, your identity of self, and realize that whereas mankind have jokingly said that an angel in heaven is nobody in particular, that we feel that you are someone very special. And therefore the angelic host today have made an agreement whereby 7 angels will seize upon every individual whose consciousness is willingly raised toward their divinity, and assist that one to escape for a moment the bonds of sense consciousness and enter into a realization of the light. Sometimes we jokingly, when we approach the planet, refer to your world as a nightmare world. This is because of the tremendous levels of illusions which are created in the world by the mind of men. For they are busy, very busy in creating many manifestations. Some of these are, of course, quite desirable even from our standpoint. And I would disabuse your minds of the idea that all is a sea of evil. Not so. But nevertheless, there is a great deal of undesirable creation and a great deal of promulgation and spreading, diffusion of that nightmarish creation, which other individuals will pick up from time to time, and I wish to leave completely behind. So won't you leave behind you your pack of troubles? During World War I, when we sent numerous angels to the battlefields of France and in Germany, you had a song, pack up your troubles in your old kit bag. We say to you today, we want you to completely forget your troubles and the kit bag. We want you to forget your identity. For a moment, this will be most refreshing, we are sure, seeing many of you carry weights and burdens upon your hearts which have not produced in all of the time you have been upon this planet one iota of the freedom you seek. Will you realize the power in your feeling world of an angel? Will you realize in your feeling world the power of faith? You are now no longer a dense mortal creation. Suddenly, there is with the Lord and the Lord's host a multitude of angels singing, glory unto God in the highest and peace on earth to men of good will. Suddenly you are ambassadors of goodwill. You join with the angelic host. You feel the surge of their energy as it pours through the force field of your identity, no longer wedded to matter. You are now no longer wedded to problems, to karma, to any situation, but as a naked spirit, you are now clothed upon with a garment of light. Now, because you are no longer engaged in the battle of the senses, you are able to realize the reality of God in a fuller scale. New dimensions open up. The earth itself is but a tiny pinpoint in cosmos. You see the spiral nebulae. You see swimming in space the glorious manifestations of myriad constellations. You see the angelic host passing back and forth between one star and another. You see transcendent light rays, myriad colors, glory and music, and the realization that the universe is a breathing, living entity, that the universe is a Christ resurrected identity, that the universe lives because the abundant life fills it. The pulsations of God within it cause it to breathe and to manifest. And because God lives in it, he lives in the microcosmic world of your own being. You are now a part of the angelic host, the brotherhood of men, of angels, and of elementals. And nature itself is reflected in you. Within you there are suns and constellations of all types and descriptions. Within you there are lakes and rivers, mountain streams and growing things, for your consciousness embraces them all. Why, all these years have you permitted your consciousness to actually confine itself to the shell of mortality? It's more than you realize. Now the babbling brooks sing a new song within your heart, and your frozen attitudes of winter become the glories of spring, and you are garlanded and festooned with the purity of the angelic host and the childlike sense that God is everywhere, and that you will never again be confined to this strange prison house of clay which has kept you from those higher dimensions of faith, which is the inheritance of every man, woman, and child upon this planetary body. Now, with a thud, I return you to sense dimensions, and I say, keep the faith.